Okay, we are back and we are going to get our program started. I'm so grateful for you all joining us tonight. We have a really exciting show. My name's Chelsea. I'm the Director of Programs and Partnerships with Women Voices Now. Tonight, you are joining our Voices for Change program. This is the second event in this new series that we've launched this year to bring films from our film collection to our audience in this online format for a discussion. Our Voices for Change film collection inspires change in the moment, getting people involved in movements, in conversations and campaigns happening on a global scale to advance women and girls' rights. And we're so excited that you are joining us to be a part of a very exciting conversation happening right now. And to have this conversation with us, we're going to watch a very new film to our Voices for Change film collection. And that film comes from our Girls Voices Now program. This film, The Bloody Truth, a look into period poverty, was created in our summer 2022 Girls Voices Now program. Our Girls Voices Now program is our media training program that equips high school aged youth with the ability to tell social change stories through documentary film. We're getting ready to move into our sixth summer this coming July. Applications are open now, so if you're interested, please look into that. And with us, we have filmmakers who are a part of the film. And we also have, we have filmmakers who have made the film, and we have a couple speakers who have been involved in campaign work on the ground, advancing issues around menstruation awareness, hygiene, justice, and ending period poverty on a global and local scale. So we're really excited to have that conversation with you all. But first, we'll go ahead and get started with the film. Before I do that, I just want to say a few thank yous to everybody who's made this possible. Thank you, of course, to Period Movement for being a co-host and co-sponsor of this event. Thank you to the filmmakers who have made this film, Maya, Zulema, and Nalley. I think they're all with us tonight and able to hear from them after the film. So look forward to that. And then thank you to the staff of Women Voices Now. Without you, this program would not be possible. And of course, the sponsors and contributors to our program. So I think with that, I'm going to go ahead and pull up the film and we will get it started. So everybody knows the film runs about 11 minutes in runtime. And then we will invite the filmmakers first to stage to share with us why this topic moved you, why you were so intent on making this film. And then we'll turn it over to our short panel to talk about the work to advance period poverty and menstruation justice around the world. Okay, just one moment.
It was the summer before sixth grade. I remember going to the restroom and I look at like my underwear and I see the blood. It was like very bold and red and being so afraid, like any little girl, I yelled to my mom, like, I'm bleeding. Like it baffles me now as an adult that that was the first time that blood, right, was coming to a conversation with my mother. And it really wasn't a conversation. What she said was, it's fine, put a sock and like, we will figure it out in the morning. Now reflecting back, you know, just like I've spoken to you, wow, like what an opening experience for me, even now, knowing that yeah, I mean, my first experience with my period was like a shock. Period poverty is definitely a sort of complex issue within sort of the umbrella of poverty. It's something that affects a lot of people. Sometimes people think it's something that only affects people in developing nations, but it's certainly something that actually affects people across pretty well the globe. Period poverty is not having access to facilitations that provide proper hygiene and not being able to either afford or have menstrual products with you. I went to a reproductive health workshop, and that's when I was first introduced to the concept of period poverty. Within that workshop, I learned that I myself had gone to period poverty at a younger age, coming from a low income and immigrant background. I noticed how sometimes my family and I didn't have the means to afford these products, and we would use alternatives. The products that I've definitely seen people commonly and frequently use as alternatives have been clothing rags that they reuse multiple times, newspaper, toilet paper, and I've even witnessed people use garbage bags. One time, I think at church, it came and I wasn't prepared. So I used like a plastic bag I had found. Like I just wanted to like cover and not have the blood go through my pants.
So if you don't have clean materials, you could end up using products that should be thrown away. They could cause you to sweat or develop irritation in the genital area,
causing things like UTIs, yeast infections, toxic shock syndrome. Toxic shock syndrome is a rare reaction to a blood-borne pathogen. Usually staph, it's a staph bacteria that gets into the bloodstream. It can cause a precipitous drop in blood pressure, seizures, and potentially death.
Leaving in the tampon for more than several hours is not recommended because you could forget about it and then it could lead to an infection and to toxic shock syndrome in a small proportion of people who use these.
I actually still use pads now, but I use, very natural cotton pads. They cost me more money, and that's another discussion we need to have, is like how expensive these products are and how we get taxed on them and, like how accessible they really, truly are. Anyone who's living below the poverty line will likely be experiencing period poverty. If you're struggling to afford food, you're probably also struggling to afford menstrual products. If I have to sit there and ask my mom for, $8 for a packet of pads, and I know that we're struggling, we don't even know where our next meal is coming from because food stamps have run out, and it just so happens that now on my period, I'm guilty, like a child would not ask my mom for money for a pad. Definitely a lot of these menstrual product companies should have prices that are accessible to many people because they are just as basic as using toilet paper every day. It is ridiculous to me that I walk into Target right now and I'm going to find nothing under $5. Nothing. There's nothing under it.
Companies ideally would make products more affordable so that people can access them easier. Yes. Ideally, I think they would be free.
The social safety nets really need to be a lot more bolstered for people who are experiencing poverty. I mean, I'm sure only very recently have states started to remove the tax for menstrual products. So the tampon tax would be any tax that's added on to any menstrual product. So not just tampons, pads, tampons, reusable products. After a lot of fighting from advocates, a lot of states and regions have removed the tampon tax, but it was previously classified as a luxury good. And so that's why they were taxed. And I think we can all agree products are not a luxury good, a human necessity.
So I think I would definitely get more menstruators or anyone who's passionate about advocating for menstrual health and to end period poverty by being able to educate them first. I think education is such a vital thing.
Coming from an at-risk community in Hollywood, where most of the kids are on the poverty line and below, these are not the conversations we are having.
It's really concerning the lack of education that comes with the stigma there is to menstruation and periods, especially within the educational system and also even within households and families. I know for many communities and many cultures, it's still tabooed. Before my mom or I became educated, I remember she would tell me, like, be discreet about it. Don't let your brother see your pad. Go take the trash outside because nobody can be seeing this inside. Growing up with that stigma that I face also really inspired me to fight back.
Talking about periods is a big thing, right? Like just talking about them with everybody, but especially people that you don't think want to talk about them. So I always say the people that are most resistant are arguably like who we should talk about them with the most.
Period has so much power in it and positive power. I think that if we just were to get rid of that stigma in the culture, it would not only would it like heal so much trauma, but it would bring us together like woman to woman.
Generational trauma has been a cycle that keeps repeating itself, where so many families continue the period stigma, the period shame onto menstruators and their families. And so I think it's a very big issue. But I think as we move forward, I definitely see a change in our generation and the younger generations. And it's really empowering to see how they want to learn. They want to break that stigma. And it's such a beautiful thing because collectively we can break this generational trauma. Bringing that into a table talk definitely changes so many things, from education to accessibility and to even recognizing the privilege you have as being someone who may be able to afford these products, or also noticing that, hey, I might be experiencing period poverty.
When you ask me about period poverty, honestly, the first thing that comes to mind, the first thought that comes to mind is I didn't even realize I had it. You know, I didn't realize that I went through that. That's crazy to me that I had a sock B, the thing that held my period the first time, you know?
For people experiencing period poverty, there's a few really big umbrella organizations you can look up just to kind of get a sense of if there's anything in your local community. Period is a great place to start.
Our chapter network is what really fuels and ignites period as a whole. So the 350 chapters that we have across the US and then across the like 25-ish countries, the three main things that they do to narrow it down are service, education, and advocacy. So providing menstrual products to people who need them, and then advocacy. So, you know, working on policy, whether that be at a local level, state level, and national level, working with legislators to implement menstrual equity policy, and then education.
And then if you are living in a state that still has a tampon tax, there's lots of awesome advocacy groups working to end that tax. And I think that's a really great way to get involved as well.
For the youth and other people who want to get involved, but maybe aren't sure what their next step should be. And if you don't see anything like I did, start your own thing. I think definitely it's scary at first to start your own thing because you're scared of, will it succeed? Will I even get support? But I think definitely go for it, because at the end of the day, you're doing something to service your community. And within that, so many other passionate advocates will join you in the movement and will want to be part of this change. Advocate, ask for help, and go act. Even going to protests, going to workshops, and going to other events are definitely a big step to, you know, taking action for menstrual health equity and to end period poverty.
Okay, welcome back. I hope you all enjoyed the film. I know that it can be a little spotty sometimes moving throughout, but I hope you're able to get a good signal and watch it all the way throughout. I want to invite our filmmakers, Maya. I think we have Nalley, Zulema. Oh, it's great to see you, Bonnie, who is in the film. If you want to join us on camera, I'd love to have you as filmmakers just share first. It's good to see you. Hi. If you'd like to share why this topic was so important to you and why you wanted to cover it in your documentary. And for those who don't know, I'll just say again, Girls Voices Now is our summer media training program. Well, it begins in the summer, but it continues all year round. And it begins in the summer with 5 weeks where girls in high school get to join us to pick a topic that matters to you or you see in your community and create a documentary film. So the film you just watched was one from our 2022 summer made by these 3 filmmakers and starring Bonnie, as you see here. So yeah, go ahead. Whoever would like to jump in first, we can hear from you all, and then we'll invite our panel to join us as well.
Yeah, so I guess just starting off, I really want to do this topic mostly because I've recently heard about it, but I didn't know much about the topic. And I think, exploring it through a film and educating myself as well as other people on the topic would have been enlightening for sure. It was, again, very interesting for me, being able to see what, I have, but also seeing like the issues around me, the issues at my school specifically as well, and my community, and like wanting to inform people about that, because a lot of people in my area also did not know that period poverty existed. And I think making sure that people, wherever they may be, know about the issue might be one of the most important things that we can do in order to take that step to, solve it.
Thanks, Maya. Zulema, Nalley.
Okay, I could go. So similar to Maya, I had learned about the issue, and Maya was kind of the one who like introduced us to it, but I had already heard about it before. And I think it was just, I think I leaned towards the topic because I was like a little bit familiar with it. And like Maya was saying, yeah, like we definitely got to learn a lot more about the topic during the whole filming process. And I think it was a really nice experience to like hear about a topic and then actually get into it and be able to create a film about it.
If you're not speaking, yeah, can you keep muted? Oh, it might have been you, Zulema. Okay, Nalley, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, okay. So I was really passionate about focusing on period poverty solely because it's something that I didn't hear growing up. Like I lived in poverty most of my life, and thankfully I never faced period poverty, but it was something never talked about growing up. It was just kind of linked in with poverty. And I think it's very important to talk about like menstrual health in general, and the lack of that in school, with the fact that we didn't have much, definitely played a role into trying to focus on something that the school system will not talk about, or society in general. And it definitely like felt amazing to make a film about it, focus on it, get perspective on it, and like for it to turn out so good, it was amazing. So yeah.
Thanks for adding that. And Bonnie, we'd love to hear from you if you'd like to speak as somebody who shared your story in the film and got to connect on the other side of the camera from the filmmaking experience. What was it like for you to tell your story and be a part of this with the filmmakers?
Well, I have to highlight that these girls did an incredible job. Just like how something like some of them just said they were in poverty, but like they didn't experience it, yet they were so passionate about it. I think that speaks volumes of them. But for me, like you hear me say it in the film, but I didn't realize, something happens to you and you just go on with life. I didn't recognize or realize that I actually experienced extreme period poverty from the moment I had my period, I think because habits are hard to kill, I think until, I was like maybe a young adult, you carry on those, because it also goes with learning hygiene. And so, you know what I mean? Like it goes hand in hand. So for me, after filming this with them and then rewatching the film at the screening, I realized like, whoa, like, there was definitely some bad hygiene happening even after, because I started working at a very young age I've been working since I was 14 years old, like a full-time job. So even when I had my own money to supply me with pads and tampons, I guess to save money, you don't change it until like every 8 hours, if that. And then the doctor says in there, like, you forget, and yeah, like you kind of forget, that you have this tampon in there and you should like really change it out. And then all the toxins in there. So it's like a whole conversation after the conversation that needs to be had. But yeah, very eye-opening for me. And yeah, I definitely am a lot more educated about, what that looks like now for other people, and yeah, addressing it in my life. But yeah, congratulations, girls. That was incredible.
I want to also just sort of invite the panelists to join us as we start to talk about the power of this film to help move people into action. I think you all do a really amazing thing in this film, and that's weave stories together about what this was like for people as they knew they're experiencing or didn't. And then you talk to people who are on the front lines of doing the direct work to help create change. And so we have a couple people here. Dama, hi, nice to see you on there. And Aiden, if you want to unmute and turn your camera on, you can join us as well. A couple people who have been on the front lines of doing this work across the country to address period poverty, and a number of the words and very amazing topics. I was scrambling all at the beginning of this story. So Aiden, if you want to come on too, I have a couple more questions I'd like to pose to anyone. And we're still inviting folks to join us, which is really great. Really glad that everybody could come out and take time to join us for the conversation in the film. And for folks who have maybe missed the film, I'll just note, we dropped a link in the chat. We'll make the film available afterwards as a follow-up. And we hope that you are all inspired to maybe show this film and have this sort of conversation in your local communities. So we'll make sure we tell you how else you can do that. So as we're getting everybody else into the conversation, I just want to hear, what do you think the impact of having a film like this is in the moment of this conversation? Being in it, being somebody who helped make it, being somebody who's talked about it in the film, like all of you can help chime in a little bit about this. What do you think the value of having a documentary like this is to advance this issue?
I'd love to take a stab at this first. And Aiden might be having some technical difficulties, by the way. It says like her camera was disabled by the host, so maybe you can see if that works. Well, we figured that out. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Damaris Pereda, or Dama. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the National Programs Director at Period. Love the film. Thank you for including us and including so many of our partners. And again, like bringing space and awareness about this. I would love to just say that, like, I think when we know that images move people, and in this era of like 8-second TikToks, that's kind of like how long our attention span is. Having a video that really showcases and highlights the importance of this issue was an incredible way to get the attention, to increase awareness, to recognize it's an issue, because that's where we're at right now. People are like generally aware of what period poverty is, but I loved, Bonnie, thank you for sharing your story in that film, just kind of sharing it and personifying the fact of what this is. This impacts real people, and it's happening here in Los Angeles. And I think, or here, I'm from Los Angeles, I'm not in LA right now, happening here in the United States. Mentally, I am. So I love that. So I think the impact, to say answer that question, goes through recognizing the importance of humanizing an issue and also bringing attention to it. And it really allows the creativity to share. I loved also the images used throughout. Those were noticed. I'm sure that they took a lot of effort to create or plan. And I love the kind of art that was included through it all to kind of help highlight and destigmatize. So I think it's films like this in particular that really help destigmatize and move the conversation forward.
Anyone else want to jump in on that?
Yeah, I'll jump in. Hi, folks. I'm Aiden. I'm also from Period. First, I just want to say this is so cool. I was a film and TV student in college, so this is just like right up my alley. But yeah, no, I think just to echo off of what Dama said, I think that, one thing that movies do, like media in general, I suppose, is, show people that don't necessarily have an experience with period poverty or something else like that, what it might be like. And, people that have not experienced period poverty are not necessarily ever going to hear about it or, know what it literally physically, materially might look like. So I think that's probably the most powerful aspect of film, like as far as period poverty goes. But yeah, no, this is great. Really job well done. I love it.
Yeah, and I just want to take that opportunity just again to congratulate the filmmakers on such an amazing job well done. Just, immediately sort of hearing about the value of this film and understanding the impact it has and is already having in the world. I just, can't thank you all and congratulate you enough on how powerful this is and how moving it was to see it yet again. So thank you all. And I'm so glad you're all three here tonight to be a part of the conversation. I have a few more questions I want to ask, especially now with the panelists from Period. Your expertise in advancing these issues, I think, is exactly what the film has hoped to do, right? Connect the dots between something that feels really big and difficult to tackle, but making it feel really accessible and understandable to an audience in, just 10 short minutes. So I'm curious if you all want to speak to maybe what the biggest misconception is, what people think about period poverty. We tried to say as much as we could in 10 minutes, but I'm sure there's many misconceptions that are left on the table. And here's a great moment to sort of provide further education to that. And Aiden or Dama.
Yeah, I can start. And then Aiden, I'd love to hear if you want to share, and anyone else, that wants to share it on. I'd like to just kind of clarify or just add on what we define period poverty is. And I think the film does a great job of recognizing what that is. And I just want to emphasize also that it's a limited or inadequate access to menstrual products or menstrual health education, right? I know the film talks about how we just don't know about periods, and it could be due to, and I have this written down on notes of like either financial constraints, so like either financially you're not able to, or just the negative social cultural stigmas that are caused around menstruation in our culture. So I know we discussed already earlier about menstrual health education and how that's already not talked about a lot. And that is what period poverty includes. It's not just about the lack of access to products, but it's that stigma that we feel, that shame that we have when we are assuming we have our period and we don't have products and we're at school or we're at work. All that kind of an inability that will inhibit someone who menstruates from actually living their full life with dignity in the school setting, at work, and whatever it is. It can impact so many aspects of life, right? And that was shared through the film, but not having access to period products or the education to it can impact our ability to access extracurricular activities. It can impact our ability to access our school. And the biggest misconception, to answer your question, has to do a lot with like people, and we've said already, people think this is happening only in other countries, yet nearly 1 in 4 students in the United States has shared that they cannot afford menstrual products. That is almost 25% here in this country. And that is happening in our schools all around the country, especially rural communities, and not to mention lower income and Latinx and Black students reported were at a higher disadvantage of this than white counterparts in this country. And so there's also lots of racial disparities among this, just recognizing who this is impacting most in the country. And so I think it's just about recognizing and putting it in the picture and highlighting that this is happening here and now, and it can be happening in our schools. And talking about it is very much the very first step to ensure that people are aware about the issue and help destigmatize it so we can make it less shameful for folks to actually learn about this and make something about it.
Yeah, Bonnie, I'd love to hear from you.
I love this conversation. I love periods now. I'm a huge period advocate, and my friends make fun of me because they're like, it's because your period's only because my period's 3 to 4 days long and I don't really have extreme cramps, but I did at one point, struggling with my health and stuff. So I understand why they would be so upset that I'm so pro period. But I think going back to the social stigma and just culturally, right, religiously, we're thought of as these women are supposed to be pure and women are supposed to be clean and we're not supposed to be dirty. Somehow we're not supposed to bleed, right? And it's just it starts in the house and at such a young age. I think young girls, especially in the Latino or the Latinx community, are learning in the house, hide your period, hide your tampon, hide your pad, don't talk about your period. And that creates in itself like this shameful component to the conversation. And then, including now, like being poured to that conversation, right? It's like, wow, like now I feel even more shameful that I bled on my pants or my underwear. Like estoy sucia, like I'm dirty, and like, it's like a bigger conversation. And then it translates into us adult women hating ourselves, hating our body dysmorphia. Along with that is the blood, right? Like just being like, I hate being a woman. Why do I have to be a woman? Why do I have to bleed? Why don't men bleed? Et cetera, et cetera. And then when you finally come to a place where you can fully understand what your body does and how it cycles in seasons, I think it like turned on a switch in your brain. You're like, wait, I really need my period to function. I need it for my mental health. I need it for clarity. I need to know when my period's going to come so that I know how to act or what decisions I'm making or how to take time out for myself. Self-care is a big conversation right now. And that comes along with, knowing when are you cycling? How does that come? And so, yeah, the biggest thing for me when I talk about periods, not just to young girls, but to women like my age and older, it's like, hey, stop saying you hate your period so much. Like, once you understand that you actually need it, regardless of how you may not like having it, you'll get along better with your body. And then it'll be a better and bigger conversation to have with the younger generation about body positivity and about loving ourselves. So I just think like along with period poverty comes the lack of love for ourselves and our body and how we bleed and loving our period. Yeah.
I'm curious of any of the filmmakers, because you sort of all mentioned in your different ways that this topic wasn't something you fully were aware of before you started embarking on the discovery of making a film. What was something that you were maybe really surprised to learn through the process of making the film?
I think something that I was surprised about, excuse me, sorry. I think something I was surprised about is about, how many people it actually affects. I think for something that is so influential and so prominent in our, society, in our schools, and our communities, it's something that people know so little about, and that's what was kind of astounding to me, and why that was the driving force of why I wanted to make the film in the first place. It's affecting so many people in our communities. Why don't we know about this? So I think getting the word out was one of my main intentions, and I hope, I hope it did that with this film. So, yeah, and I'll pass it to Nalley, who wanted to say something.
Thanks, Maya. I was gonna say, like, because like Maya said, it's something that's not mentioned, even though it affects many in the communities like we live in. And what I found kind of surprising was, like, in a way, it surprised me that of how much it didn't surprise me, because it was like, seeing as surrounding periods, I was already like really like not talked about in school, something that you weren't supposed to really talk about. It's surprising how much, like, how little was talked about, even though schools talked about poverty like quite a bit. It's like you would learn what poverty was. Like they would show you like the extreme effects of poverty. Like they wouldn't show you like the different, how like there was different types of poverty. Just like poverty was this really like bad thing where like people are barely getting by, and it was surprising like that period poverty was never mentioned. So when I kind of just knew it existed. I never knew there was a term for it, and I didn't know how many people it actually affected. So it was surprising to learn all of that, along with like the health risks that came with it. That was something that definitely surprised me when I was like, when we were learning about this and filming it.
I love that. It made me think of how I always get really frustrated when I hear, oh, Zulema, I think there's sort of a spotty that.
Yeah, just I'll mute myself.
but we want to hear you talk. So if you can fix that, that'd be.
Oh, okay. Can you guys hear me? Okay. No? You guys can hear me? Hold on.
There's something wrong with your mic.
a second.
There's something wrong with your mic, and it's really.
I think it's
yeah.
Maybe you can log out and come back in really quick. Oh,
Can you guys hear me now?
yeah, you sound great.
Yeah? I think it was my AirPods that I had on.
Yeah.
But I agree with both of the girls of what they were saying on how surprising it was, because a lot of people are affected by this too, like especially in our communities. And then also Nalley mentioned, I was gonna say the health hazards that came with it, which I had no idea about. So then when we interviewed I think one of Maya's relatives, I forgot, but she spoke out about like the health hazards that came with it, which were like really surprising to me, because I mean, if I didn't really think it would get to that point. So having health hazards with that, and then having no awareness on the whole topic, really is like, both of them are really surprising to me. So I'm glad that we did it and we brought like awareness to it.
Mhm.
You guys can hear me right? I'm good?
Yeah,
Okay.
it sounded much better. Thanks for doing that. Glad we could hear.
Chelsea,
Okay.
Chelsea, I'm Lorna Auerbach. I'm one of the supporters of Women's Voices Now, and I have a question.
Oh, okay.
When I was 22, I taught high school at Roosevelt High School in East Los Angeles, and I taught there for 7 years until I left to join my family business. During that time, I got my bilingual teaching credential. I'm completely bilingual in Spanish and English, and my administrative credential. I was very close with my students, and there wasn't much of an age gap between 18 and 22. And they felt comfortable coming to me. Particularly, I mentored the young women. I wanted them to have the same college opportunities and worked hard to get them scholarships. And many of them went on to East Coast colleges like Smith and Yale and did really well. I'm shocked hearing this, that this was such a secret. And I'm baffled as to why none of those young women ever came to me. They know I was very approachable. I spent a lot of time with them. We did a lot of field trips. I started the Model United Nations program at Roosevelt. I took the kids to New York and to Boston, to a competition at Harvard, to the real UN. We did a lot of fundraising where we sold, horchata and all kinds of things on campus to help them raise money. Why did they never come to me and say, they used to call me Miss. They would tell me if they didn't have books or they didn't have notebooks or they needed help to pay for a field trip. Why didn't they ever come to me and say, I want to talk to you about something. I have this issue. I don't know what to do about it, et cetera. The other thing is that the mothers were really young. So the mothers, there wasn't that much of a huge age gap between the mothers and their daughters. So the mothers must have been experiencing the same. How did the mothers deal with it? They were still getting their period. They weren't into menopause yet. So I mean, there's so much that I could have done had I known in terms of working with the community. We had a lot of sponsors within the community, with local community businesses for things that we needed, whether it was getting the kids summer jobs or, help with scholarships, whatever. Why didn't they come to me?
I think this is a great question, speaking to the barriers and stigma, and eager to see who would like to jump in and chat. Maybe a few people would like to provide an answer. Bonnie, and then Nayeli's on deck too. Okay. Well, go ahead, Bonnie.
Nayeli, you want to go first? You can totally jump in.
Okay, thank you, Bonnie. I kind of have a response to that in the sense that I also have very approachable teachers, and I can ask them for help, with what you mentioned. But I think, especially coming from a Latino family, there's a lot of stigma surrounding different things, especially surrounding periods. Thankfully, I grew up in an all-women house where it wasn't something stigmatized. But when I did visit family in Mexico, where I had my period both times, it was very stigmatized, where I couldn't talk about it in front of my uncles or my cousins. who were males, I couldn't like mention it. Like I could only go to my tia or my sister. And it's like, whether or not you can ask for help for other things when it comes to periods, that's extremely stigmatized in those communities where it's more so shamed upon you for talking about it. And it's like whether or not it's something that you can kind of feel comfortable with friends to like who also experience it. It's different when it comes to adults, especially when it's the adults who are mainly shaming you. And if the mothers were young, it could also be that they were facing that from their family, and generational trauma does play a role in stigma. So it could be that that stigma was passing down onto the children from the mothers who were still young, and especially like teen pregnancies are going to be harder to deal with. And it's like, if they're both young, it's something that they will both struggle with and make it harder to ask for help surrounding when it comes to periods.
Thank you, Nayeli. Does anybody else want to add?
On top of what Nayeli is saying, she's like spot on. But as a teen mom myself, I had my daughter at 13. I can tell you that the you taught in East LA makes a lot of sense. Like the Latino culture, just to tag along with what Nayeli was saying, is like it's a taboo subject even till this day. It's not something that is really considered a clean conversation, just like sex isn't talked about, you know. Now there is a lot more conversation around sex, thank God. But for a long time, you know, you don't talk about sex, you don't talk about blood, you don't talk about your bodily fluids with your mom, or, you know, and if you do, again, like there's almost like this shameful aspect about it. And you feel it. And so I think that's why, you know, even in school, you go to a friend before you go to your mom about the conversation. And sometimes, especially at that time, you know, friends don't also know what to do. So you're not getting the best advice from anyone. But I am noticing a huge change happening in the new generation, and just them being a lot more vocal about it. I'm noticing even when I go visit certain schools, there's like tampons and pads in the bathrooms, and I'm like, whoa, this is free. Like like it makes me really happy, you know, because, you know, yeah, I would have loved that as a young girl. But yeah, that's why they didn't. I think the main reason they didn't come to you is because they, you know, it was bigger than them. It was a shameful topic. You don't really talk about that stuff, just like you don't talk about sex with your teachers, you know. Yeah.
Aiden, I see you had your hand up. You want to jump in?
Yeah, I just wanted to echo a little bit off of what Bonnie was saying. I feel like Lorna may be in a similar position. I actually work in a public high school. I'm here at my desk right now. And because I work at Period, I have this little sign on my desk right here. It just says free period products. And then I have this little thing basically full of tampons and pads. And I also work in a predominantly Latino community, and so all my students are Latin or from Latin backgrounds, and they don't often come and like talk to me about periods, and I don't think students in general, they're just not doing that, but they do come to my desk and ask me for pads and tampons, or they'll come and take them. So I just want to say I do think there is progress being made. I mean, it's slow, it's not as fast as we would like it to be, but I do think it is happening. And I've had a few come to me and say, do you have a pad? Or they'll ask me for a specific type of pad too. So I'm trying to provide different options now that I've had those kind of interactions. And some of them do want to talk about it. I've had conversations about like different brands of pads or like menstrual cups or more sustainable solutions. So I think people are getting more comfortable with it, though it is taking obviously a little bit longer than would be ideal. But I just wanted to add that.
Please jump in, Dama.
Yeah, this is such a great conversation because in terms of, and what a great question, Lorna, like, why didn't they, like, well, the patriarchy, that's, like period poverty has really been around for centuries. Period and stigma obviously has been around for as long as life has. And so it's the result of like historical systems of oppression that like have been against women, girls, people who menstruate. But the tide is changing. And I want to be hopeful and the key for that we're seeing is the policies we're seeing on the advocacy side. So I want to share that currently 17 states mandate free menstrual products in school restrooms around the country. It's not 50, we got 50, but California is one of them who were a big part of that. That was AB 367. And Washington also requires them in school restrooms for free. And so we're seeing a lot of that. The tax on menstrual products, 22 states still tax menstrual products as well. And so our key, eliminating the tax on menstrual products is not going to eliminate period poverty, but it does get us there in the government recognizing this is an essential need. And so at Period, we really address that so that we're talking about legislatures are not talking about period tax, like they're talking about periods. And yes, some of the bills don't pass, but they're already getting there. And as you know, depends on where you are in the country, the alternative side that I want to mention, we are making waves and people are upset. As you are familiar, maybe you've heard about the Florida bill, the don't say period bill. They are really literally trying to restrict. I don't know if any of you are from the state of Florida. So if you want to share, if you know more, but in the state of Florida, they are actually trying to restrict people from talking about menstruation with younger children in elementary schools. Yet statistics show that students are starting to menstruate as early as 3rd grade. And so, yeah, if I was like, it's a really interesting and scary time that I want to make sure that it's films like this that can help destigmatize and help change. And I think we're getting people upset, which means things are happening. So I see that as a good thing, but we still have to keep fighting and continuing to share this because these policies are moving forward in some states. And we're talking about Alabama in the South, like people are afraid and they're afraid about talking even about gender inclusivity among periods. And at Period, we're really good. The fact that we're an advocacy organization, we are talking about advocacy and advancing the access for menstrual products for all who menstruate. That does not mean you are a woman or not a woman. We're not trying to eliminate any of those aspects. I'll be honest, right now, I'm on this role at Period. I actually have an IUD. I actually don't get my period every month right now because I'm on birth control. Does that mean I'm not a woman? No, I'm a woman and my identity is still with that. So I'm saying that because sometimes you menstruate, sometimes you don't. That doesn't mean you're a woman or not. So that's language that we stay away from on the advocacy side, of course. But people, of course, are very upset. We're trying to get access to menstrual products. We always want to have them in as many restrooms as possible, including either gender neutral, boys' restrooms, men's restrooms. People are upset. Oregon has one of the most inclusive policies around the country, so I want to share that. But people are fighting back and they want to remove products from boys' restrooms. So, but still, what I'm seeing is that we are talking about periods at the legislature. So that is a way different place than we've been 10 years ago. And it's been because of the incredible efforts of activists from around the world for the past 50 plus years that I've actually been trying to do something about this. So thank you again. This is because of all of our efforts and I'm hopeful, but also let's keep vigilant and make sure that we keep fighting about this because these bills are coming in place and we want to be careful with that.
So you said something that struck me. I was thinking about it, but I wasn't going to mention it. I'm 75, just to put this in perspective. I was born in 1948. So in 1958, I was 10. And I remember getting a little booklet in the mail that said, now you are 10. Which means even then in 58, some of us were getting our periods at the age of 10. And I believe, it's my memory is not that clear on it, but it left a big impression, this little book, Now You're 10. Wow, what does that mean? Like I'm a grown-up? And yeah, I believe that it was sent out by one of the companies that manufactured period products and that there was some kind of like a coupon or something in there. Like you might be like a promotion for a toothpaste, right? So I'm wondering if some kind of liaison with the companies themselves to, I don't know, create some kind of like student discount or student pricing or something like that. I mean, after all, when we were in college, they were sending out credit cards. We didn't even have to apply for them. They put us in debt with no problem. So, that's something. The other thing that I have a very vivid memory of, my first year in college, I was living in a dormitory. And I saw that a lot of my fellow roommates, we didn't have mixed dorms then. We had the girls' dorm and the boys' dorm. So when you'd go into the bathroom, it was girls only. And that I was still using sanitary pads and I was 18 at this point. I didn't know anything about, but I saw that a lot of my girlfriends and roommates use tampons. I had no clue how to use it. I literally had to enlist a girlfriend to get in the stall next to me and give me explicit instructions to use a tampon. And then being told, you know, you can get this kind of toxic shock if you keep it in too long, you have to change it, stuff like that. So, you know, even then we were learning from each other. And maybe if girls aren't comfortable talking to their teachers, maybe you have this sort of big sister, little sister pairing, you know, with a high school student, with a junior high student, with the girls can talk to each other, you know, come to me, like I'll be your big sister and you can ask me anything. I have 2 daughters. One is 36 right now and the other one is 40, but I always tried to bring them up with you. Ask me anything. There is nothing that will shock me. There's nothing that I haven't done or haven't heard. Tell me anything, ask me anything. And just to have that kind of trust and open conversation.
Yeah, Bonnie, you want to jump in?
I love that, Lorna. It's like an open door policy. And I think like once you say it's an open door policy, you are encouraged to share. So that's huge. One thing that I have a son who's 12 and like I'm huge on not just him, but like other little kids. Like I don't feel like period is a topic that should be a bad topic or off the table topic. So I speak to boys about periods just as much as I speak to girls about periods, because the more that we have, you know, young little boys in like 5th, 6th, 7th grade know about, you know, periods, the more supportive they're going to be to their counterparts and the less shameful these little girls are going to feel about getting the support they need to go on this new journey that their body is taking them on. You know what I mean? And so in my house, like my son knows, like when his sister or I are on our period, he calls us dragons, you know? And so he's like, oh, you're a dragon, like, you know, but that at least allows for him to know, like in school when his classmates, you know, have to or need to go to be their allies and tell the teacher like she needs to go to the bathroom, like you know, or when someone else tries to tease them about it, it's like they stand up for their friends and they're like, no, like it's normal, like what are you doing, dude? You know what I mean? So I think that also could be like something, you know, I don't know how, I mean, I know I implemented, you know, with who I know, but I try to like de-shame, like stop shaming the little girls for getting their period. This is such a beautiful moment in their life and like they need all the support they can get.
And maybe to that point, and to sort of bring this event to the close that we need to at the hour, unfortunately, I want to just sort of offer space for Period to let us know about the active campaign work that you're doing to sort of bring these conversations out into the community. We talked about so many different types of things that need to happen. But I know the video itself sort of showed a few things that you can be there for as far as resources go. But I just wanted to say, if there's anything that you want people to know that is, you know, valuable tools that they can pick up, campaigns they can jump into, this is your moment.
I'd love to start off, and then I'd love for Aiden to talk about our chapter program, if that's something anyone's interested, or just what they do, because they're really seeing the action on the ground. So if you're not familiar, Menstrual Hygiene Day this is actually Period Poverty Awareness Week. So I don't know, that's why probably Chelsea did this week in Women's Voices. That was started by our partners at the Alliance for Period Supplies. And then Menstrual Hygiene Day is May 28th, and that is an international day of advocacy that was done by our partners at Wash United. And it's 5/28 because it's 5-day average cycle of 5 days of a period in a 28 average cycle. So that's why it's 5/28 every year. So fun fact with that. It happens to land around Memorial Day for us in the US. So that's a shame on our end, but it is happening all around. So we have our period chapters doing some incredible work and partner organizations. And so check out menstrualhygieneday.com if you haven't already and find out to just kind of find ways to take action. At Period, we focus on 3 pillars of service, education, and advocacy. So I'm just going to do a quick rundown with service. We encourage you to host a product drive or give products or donate products to people who need them, organizations. You can always reach out to Period and find out how you can donate products to local community or host your own drive, because we want to make sure that you are bringing in your network to donate products. Education, talk about periods. Please make sure you do that as you're doing now. The education way is the way to really help destigmatize. And of course, advocacy. Check what state you're in, what policies you're a part of. If you want to get involved, check out periodactionday.com/advocacy. And I will close out with Period Action Day, which is happening every second Saturday of October. It's another day of advocacy where we encourage everyone to take action in their own communities. Again, through our 3 pillars, either host a product drive, education, or advocacy. Periodactionday.com. I will drop the link on the chat as well, but that is something that you can do so you can take action in wherever you are, in the school, with your family, in your community. There's things that you can do to help address this issue, starting locally and then, of course, going abroad. 2 other things, and then I'll pass it on to Aiden. Sorry, it's an exciting month for us. May, there was a congressional hearing last week, and it was just introduced to get a menstrual health month resolution. It hasn't been approved yet official, but it is currently in Congress to make May Menstrual Health Awareness Month. And so period.org, if you want to sign up to our newsletter, we will keep you updated on all that is, but that really is calling for an increase in education and awareness around menstrual health. So we did that with a few of our partners. I'm excited about that. And then also the other thing that I want to talk about is our chapters. I'd love for Aiden to show briefly. She's our national community coordinator, just so that she can share if you're interested in getting involved or taking action or connecting with a local period chapter. It's doing this work in your local community. That was long, sorry, but I was so excited about all the things. Aiden, go for it.
Thanks, Donna. Yes, so we have about 450 chapters across the US. We're getting closer to all 50 states, but we definitely don't have chapters in all states. In some states, we have more chapters than others. So we're always looking for more people to start chapters. And then we have chapters in like 25-ish, 30 countries outside of the US as well. And yeah, I oversee and I support all of our chapters, getting them onboarded, helping them as they get off the ground, and then just maintaining their progress or working on executing whatever kind of project they want to do. And like Donna said, that can be service, education, and advocacy. Those are the 3 things that they typically focus on. Our chapter applications are currently closed, but they're going to be opening up again in the fall when school starts next year. And if you have any questions or if you're interested in getting involved, you can email me. I put my email in the chat. It's aiden@period.org, or chapters@period.org works as well. If you are interested. And yeah, our chapters fuel our organization is, chapter-based organization. So they do all the heavy lifting. And I think being a part of Period, the best thing about it is just being a part or being surrounded by these extremely energetic and motivated youth who carry out the work just in wonderful ways. So anyway, yes, thank you for having me. It's been wonderful. And again, my email is in the chat if you are interested in starting a chapter.
I have a quick question before I go, because I'm also a major funder at St. John's Hospital in Santa Monica, and we just started the Women's Health Initiative, and the new CEO is a woman, and I was at a big fundraiser for them last night. Is anybody in your organization part of an outreach to the hospitals? Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, which also is huge in Los Angeles, has the Women's Guild. They raise millions of dollars for the hospital. They choose their own projects. Children's Hospital, Mattel at UCLA, they have a whole women's organization that chooses projects and funds them and funds research. So do you have a liaison that's specifically assigned to make outreach to the hospital, specifically the women's clinics and women's health programs?
I can take that. We have just our development director. So I'd love to connect with you after, Lorna, if that's okay, or I can drop my email. Would love to connect and hear. Sure. Would love that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And to the filmmakers, Bonnie, if there's any final words you'd like to say, I'm so grateful that you were all able to take the time to be here and be a part of this discussion. Nothing?
I just want to say congratulations again. This is still a big deal. You should be very, very proud of yourselves for what you did and putting this message out there. And I'm very excited for wherever you guys end up in filmmaking. It's such a, I hope you guys know what a big deal this is. And I just want to celebrate you again. So congratulations.
Thanks for saying that, Bonnie. Yeah, she's right. Congratulations to you both. And Maya, who had to drop a little early. Thank you to the Period movement for joining us tonight and for providing some real grounding and context to this conversation that we're trying to have so folks can get plugged in. I want to remind people, if you weren't able to watch the film with us tonight, you can watch it online. We'll also be sharing a link But Women Voices Now Film Collection has a number of other films that'll encourage you to get involved and take action. I'm going to close this out by putting up our screen that has ways for you to get involved and get connected to donating to help fuel this program. This is not just for the folks here, but for the many folks who are hopefully going to watch this live stream and the recording on YouTube. We'll help make sure that you can get connected to the next programs that we have in the Voices for Change series. And just want to say thank you again for a great night, everyone. I'm going to stop the recording in just a moment, but we can keep the Zoom open for anybody who wants to do any connection. So thanks again. Stop.